record.
Okay, sounds good. All right, welcome everybody to our inaugural webinar through the Lead 21 Alumni Association. I thank all of you for taking time today out of your, I know, very busy schedules as leaders and as people to come today to hear about the Grand Challenge Committee and what we've got coming up with our call for letters. Our letters of intent are coming up here in June. And we thought we'd use this platform thanks to one of our action teams, actually, Dean Nelson from Mississippi State, and his group, spearheaded this idea as one of the grand challenges for actually technology and extension and communication. And we are here today because of some folks within the Lead Alum Association that wanted to take some leadership on getting some things moving, and that's brought to you today by this particular webinar. So I'm looking forward to it. This is my first webinar, so go easy on me. But I do have some slides that I do want to share, but it wouldn't be a leadership opportunity if we didn't really dig down into the why first. So before we get too far along, really the idea of grand challenges, after learning from the DC meeting, this is a new concept for some folks, at least within the Lead 21 organization. So I actually asked Rochelle to speak a little bit about the background for the grand challenges within Lead 21. And I will advance the slide.
And before we get too far into those, if it's okay, I would just ask everybody, if you have questions, you can either raise your hand and I can turn on your mic, or you can type them in the Zoom webinar chat. I would encourage you to put it where it says all panelists and attendees so that everybody can see your question, or you can use the Q&A function. And if you use the Q&A function for a specific question, that'll actually allow us to track it and make sure we haven't missed a question, whereas in the chat it can kind of scroll up and we can lose it. So just want to make sure we point out those features. Feel free to raise your hand, chat, or Q&A. So the Lead 21 team originally, if you were in earlier classes, class 10 or prior, session 3 really focused on advocacy. And so we started, as things changed and faculty were not able to go to DC, able to do some of the advocacy, we started recognizing that we needed to make a change in our programming and what our focus was around kind of that organizational systems leadership focus. So starting in class 11, the grand challenges were integrated into Lead 21. And as I mentioned, it was originally around advocacy, specifically around NIFA program areas and kind of going to legislatures, to federal government, and how you sell your story, tell your story, and advocate for NIFA program area funding, essentially. When we shifted to the grand challenges, it was focusing on these grand challenges, broadening that focus, but they're still connected to program areas, but in a broader sense. And then it also adds in that element of collaboration to address those challenges, thinking about stakeholders and maybe some of those unlikely partners that we wouldn't necessarily partner with. So that's just kind of a really high level of where these came from or why we went this direction. And the evaluations kept telling us we had to do something different, no more advocacy. We just didn't know what it was for a while. And then before Brian jumps into what are they, I just thought I might explain kind of how we landed on these specific 6. The team originally generated a pretty long list of about 20 to 25 kind of big grand challenges, if you will, these wicked challenges that we think of in the land grant system. And for classes 11, 12, and I believe 13 as well, we did a survey of all of those and asked people to choose their top 3. And all 3 years, these 6 came out as the top 6 of the long list. So starting with this previous class, class 14, we only focused on these 6 and just asked people to choose their top 3 moving into the session. So it really was selected by the participants of the program from 3 classes, and every single time these 6 emerged as the top issues. So I'll turn it back over to Brian and he can get into more of the specifics of his committee.
Great, thanks, Rochelle. Yeah, and these were the challenges that were presented to, again, our class, class 12, and it was really a great opportunity to take one of these that for me, I was definitely interested in the future of extension. A lot of my extension work actually has to do with digital technology and delivery of resources in innovative ways, and I thought, hey, this might be a great way to use some of these leadership skills and networking with folks across the country in this 3rd session, and it really was. We spent time on a round table coming up with ideas, sticky notes, things were flying on the wall, things were dropping off the wall, and it was really an opportunity to kind of dig our heels into this idea, but using the brain trust that was at the table. And I think, from the standpoint of the facilitators, I think we got what we needed to get accomplished. It was just that next step, and that's really, we start looking at where the LEAD 21 Alumni Association started. I know you've all heard this, but it really did happen on the back of a napkin. And the main driver, though, was really that leaving this particular session or this particular exercise going, well, what do we do? What do we really do with these ideas? And so, this where do we go? I think all of us kind of take these ideas and work these grand challenges and work on them in various ways at our own universities. But we were thinking about how do we really take those ideas in that collaborative environment and move forward with them. And that really became the basis for the Grand Challenge Committee, realizing that not everybody's had that experience through the LEAD 21 program. However, I think we could actually extend that to folks using this particular committee. And I being the chair of this particular committee, thought we'd take this on and figure out how to do just that. The questions of who leads them to action or how to overcome these become some of our leadership dilemmas. That's ones that we were facing, but also the accountability and level of buy-in. So again, at that table at that moment in DC, we were excited, but a lot of that action and momentum can taper off if we don't put some of that into actionable steps, and if we don't have some accountability from some of the team members. For us, we kind of used our own action team as the development of the Alumni Association, because we were fueled by our why, not wanting actually our particular interactions to stop, because we had a lot of fun. But that other thing of we could actually be making this type of activity available to other alums. But also funding or development needs. So all these kind of dilemmas that happen at that table. We've got these ideas, but what do we do with them? We now started kind of shifting into, well, what is something that we could do as an alumni association? What ideas are really selected, and what criteria do we decide to kind of pick as winners? We also realized, though, that there needs to be some structure behind this. If we're actually going to include this in our bylaws, we're going to include this in within an association. And so this is actually an experience I had here, a leadership professional development experience I had here on campus called Strategic Doing out of Purdue. It was a one-day event. Really helped me kind of put some framework around, defining what a result goal might be, but understanding some milestones. But more importantly is, how do we really tackle some of these bigger questions in the short term? So what can I take as far as an idea and move it into a 30, 60, 90-day plan that have clear actionable items and some outcomes. And this kind of got me even more thinking about, okay, now if we open up this can and let everybody start developing these ideas, how do we best put a structure behind this? And this really became kind of more of the Grand Challenge Committee, the GCC proposed framework, which really is, the process is, well, we're going to have a call for proposals. In this case, it's a really simple letter of intent that really identifies an action team with the grand challenges that we have listed there, and they're actually listed on the website. So you can go to the lead21.org/alumni, and there's the list of not only the list of the challenges themselves, but there's links to PDFs with much more information that goes into detail about each one of those. So the point of today is not necessarily to go into all the detail of those grand challenges. That would probably be a few webinars in itself. But today is really to kind of more of a higher level to get you thinking about, if we have an idea as a team, how do we really get our minds wrapped around thinking about a next step, or thinking about a letter of intent, and best positioning ourselves to be successful. So part of that is a call for proposals, which we'll talk about today and can give you some framework to be thinking about. But then also identifying needs of teams to meet a DC. So part of that is bringing in leaders from those teams to then have an opportunity to network with a brand new bunch of alums, but that had just graduated, but also providing that link to professional development opportunities. We're bringing in alum from all classes to give them opportunities to further their leadership skills. But that's also a key time where we can start to bring in leaders from these defined action teams to them to really start to network and get some more traction within their particular grand challenge or their topic that they're tackling. And then really the end process is for me to report to the Alumni Association leadership during our DC board meeting, so they have an idea of what the committee is working on, what are some things that we can truly hang our hat on. Now with all this, you could about imagine there are some dilemmas that as a leader, as a chair of this particular committee that is really being defined as we go. There are some dilemmas here, and part of that is starting something new. Where do you start? You're going to hear me say this a lot, is start small, grow tall. There's a really good reason for that. But really this, the bigger dilemmas is how do you really provide a mechanism that truly does link new graduates with existing projects or big ideas, and a network of other alums that maybe don't know those ideas even exist, or that people are actually working on those projects. So the framework by which that happens is still being explored, and that's something we'll have time to kind of talk about. What are best ways if I don't want to lead an action team? That's not something I'm interested in, but I'm willing to be a part of one. I'm willing to at least see what's available and see if my resources or my abilities fits in with that particular action team. And really, this is the other kind of difficult part in this, is that team members really do contribute as much or as little as they can. And really, that's really the accountability and what they commit to do becomes really important. So we talked about teamwork, right? At least within my session. I don't know how far back that particular one goes, but within teamwork, that accountability piece and the common result will become really important to getting things done. And really, this is getting things done oftentimes without a budget to start. And so a lot of that budget, the energy that you've got left over from your current job, something that you're very passionate about that you would like to see changed, often becomes your currency. And so that's something that we need to be, keeping in mind as we move projects forward, is that yes, they are grand challenges, but if we start thinking about the little things that we can do and then start linking those little things together, and all of a sudden we start to accomplish more with something that's quite grand. So that's the idea of building on momentum while expanding collaborative networks. That's really, it shouldn't seem like a dilemma, but there's a lot of moving parts yet to be even defined. And so that's really why we've started the way we have. Only, last year, I'll talk about this, but we accepted 2 action teams. This year, I'll talk a little bit about what I'm hoping to do, mainly because I just started as interim department head in December. I've got 3 boys, the age of 13, 11, and 7, and there's no resources, quote unquote, to really do this other than I want to see this get done. So that whole idea of call for letters, it starts with the why. My why is I really feel that I've got some things that I can offer teams as far as providing some of that outside leadership, and helping them set some goals, giving them a sounding board, much like we did with our peer groups and coaching groups. Sometimes we just need that extra accountability and that outside voice saying, okay, it's time to meet. Where are we at? Those are things that I enjoy doing. I like helping people see some goals or goals, but also gaps in their thinking and helping them be more strategic about it. That starts aligning with my strengths. So to me, the Grand Challenge Committee really is an opportunity for me to kind of provide that resource to a couple of teams that are really looking to move their action team idea forward. And so to kind of get more of the nuts and bolts of how I see this happening. So we've got our leadership team, several of which are on today. Hey, team. And then you've got me, so that's the Grand Challenge Committee chair. And then the way I'm kind of seeing the structure play out as the number of action teams begins to build, and you can almost see this node network start to expand or maybe even blow up if we don't think some strategy about how to connect the pieces together. But I really see them, the task force being a grand challenge. And so that's one way to look at, at some point I'll have task force leads. So somebody's going to help me then work with the action teams that are essentially aligned with each of those grand challenges. So this is why the letter of intent becomes really important as far as where you best see kind of your team addressing a grand challenge helps me better align where to help maybe connect you with other action teams that are doing something similar, or at least to know that, hey, these are the grand challenges we're currently working on. These are the things that I can help other alums get involved within the Grand Challenge Committee. Again, they might not necessarily be a part of a team. You might be sitting there going, I don't want to lead a team, but I want to be a part of something. To me, this provides that kind of structure. And so where are we right now? Actually, I'm going to stop right there. That structure's hopefully somewhat makes sense. We've got again, the task force are basically the grand challenges. So task force 1 would be the extension delivery. So that's, each one of those essentially is a grand challenge. I just didn't put all of them here for sake of space. But then we've got the action teams that fall within each of those. So what people will be given a proposal for is an action team within a grand challenge. And so that's the main idea of the call today, is kind of how to get started, how to think about it. Any questions so far? If not, we'll have time for discussion, so you can make your notes and leave those for a little bit. But again, where are we? So part of that is, again, I'm going to say this over and over, so get used to hearing it. This idea of starting small, growing tall is really where I wanted to go, is to figure out before we grow this too fast, is to really understand, what this process really is. And for me, at least after now doing the second session, which is really more about teamwork and the value of process, is pretty important for me. So this is really why I wanted to start there. But this is really what we've got so far. Again, there's 2 more nodes than we had 2 years ago, which I think is pretty exciting. We've got 2 of the grand challenges covered last year. That was our inaugural year for the action teams. And like I said, Dean and his group, Dean and Deanne, did a great job and kind of narrowing their emphasis down and extension and delivery down to, hey, let's start with webinar. And then the great thing is that they worked with growing our education committee, because they wanted to provide education to the alums, and we put those 2 together. So in this case, it worked out really well, not only addressing the grand challenge, which is, hey, webinar is a format that we can use to get the message out. Again, during these webinars, if people have questions about webinars, that's a great time to bring those up, maybe at the very end, if we've got a little bit of time, so that, again, if you're thinking about webinars but not really know how to conduct one, so maybe some of the ins and outs to make you feel more comfortable. Again, that's the opportunity for these type of webinars, is give you a little bit more of that professional development or confidence to try something new. In this case, his team, again, helped us provide this type of format and connected with our education committee. And then David Weindorf, also working with his action team on diversity and equity in higher ed. Again, the point of today is not to go into all those in detail, but at future opportunities to be able to get you all to buy into it. Give you an opportunity to buy in, weigh in, and contribute. But basically, I just wanted to give you an idea that as we've got some of this in place. The big kind of unknowns is, at some point I am going to be looking, as the number of action teams grows, I'm going to need some help, essentially organizing the teams, making sure that we've got some level of accountability as far as what teams are there and working and contributing to these grand challenges, and basically what can we report on, and then using some leadership that have already gone through the process to fill into those lead roles in those task force. So that's kind of the where we're at now within the current structure. And so, like I said before, the thing, what I want you to be thinking about as this letter of intent request for letters comes up, is that it's the smaller the actions, the better. Again, what's going to get you started is not tackling something that is so much more time than what you're currently doing. That's probably going to prevent you from taking that first step. So finding something small within your idea, within that 30, 60, 90-day window, that you can really check off, is going to give you a little more confidence about taking that step towards change or leading that particular effort. And so part of that is what I've worked on with the 2 teams I talked about is really leveraging existing resources and assets. So what do we have available? What can we use? And that's usually within the team. It's within their universities. It's within some associated organizations that they feel they could commit to it. Looking at effective time and team management. What can we really get done in 30 days? What's really reasonable? What's a good timeline? And then really helping teams find Pathfinder projects. So something that they can feel that, hey, this is how we're going to work as a team. These are also things that I feel like I can say we got done in this amount of time. And then the bigger goal is to present something at the DC meeting, so that other alums can have an opportunity to see not only what's been done, but also maybe find a way to get involved. Again, the new and existing alums may share the same desire to lead change, but how do we enhance networking opportunities? Like I said, DC is one. We're exploring other ways to do that. LinkedIn has been mentioned as a possibility. Communities of practice. There are lots of ways. What I'm hoping is that there are all you alums out there that are way smarter about this and are doing it in really effective ways already, being able to help me and the rest of the action team members to find ways to get their messages out, and also find ways of recruiting resources, which at this point, as we all know, those that are maybe in budget situations at a university where they're using a new model, it all comes down to people as one of our most valuable resources. So again, something to think about, but really, how do we keep that momentum post-graduation? And part of that is getting new alums excited about what some of the possibilities are. And select two. So the goal. This was the goal for the first year. This was last year. Was to select 2 action teams. We did that, and present those teams at the February meeting, which we did, and identify a platform, associated resources to facilitate action team interactions. Sorry, I'm going to be the first to admit I didn't get that. I didn't get any progress on that done. So again, this is an opportunity not only to call for help, but also as leadership to say, hey, these are things that we have our best intentions to get this done, but that's just something that did not happen, mostly for time, but also trying to figure out what this thing is really going to look like. But we did present the framework to Lead 21, Class 14 in DC. And then a mechanism to initiate an action team plan that actually turned into the webinar that you're all viewing today. So I feel like for the first year out with this, none of the ground rules really decided for any of us. I felt like it was a really good opportunity to showcase what the Alumni Association and the leaders within it are really capable of doing. And so really for the second year, what I'm hoping in the leadership team for the Alumni Association, I'm really hoping is to again keep expanding the framework. So that's the start small, but now starting to grow a little more taller. And part of that is, maybe we can identify some task force leaders within our existing action teams. Not to say that it has to happen, but it's something that I'm going to be making that available to current action team members. But I'm really looking for a new action team. So the call for proposals, which I'll talk about in this next slide, is really using that list of proposals to basically test the framework and build that out and figure out how to better make those connections. Because last year we had two awesome teams. What I'm getting at is having some more teams within the same potential grand challenge area helps me as a leader better understand how to make some of those nodes fit better together, and then how to better leverage those that are outside of those action teams to get involved. And so, oops, I forgot to put check marks on all that. Look at me, and now I'm going through again one more time. So again, those are things that I feel like we did a pretty good job, at least somewhat addressing. So this is really where we're at for this coming year. So submit an idea. So hopefully I've left a good amount of time to really talk about maybe some ideas that you have, maybe give you some examples of again what worked with the previous 2 action teams, or some other things that I've been doing using that same strategic doing strategy. So again, that what can we get done in 30, 60, 90. But really is focusing leading change by participating in leadership skills learned in Lead 21. So it's again giving you a chance to maybe practice some of those skills with people that you really do trust. So again, that team is there, it's ready to go. Maybe what all you need is just an idea to kind of keep you together and working in that capacity to help you with your own leadership path. And then the letter of intent really needs to identify action team members. So this is really the letters of intent I look at this year is really your contract for accountability. Because we can all say that, I want to do something, I want to lead some change and get this done, and then if we don't ever really put that into a contract or give it to somebody else, it's really sometimes hard for us to keep on track. So this is really that opportunity to keep on track, and submit those letters to me. So that's my email address by June 1. And then not just me, but we'll look at this as a team leadership and select 2 proposals. And I say select 2 proposals because I'm not going to turn anybody down. But I also know what time I have to commit to helping 2 teams move forward. So if you do have action teams and you've got some ideas that you want to move forward, I highly suggest again you submit it. But if you don't get selected, I still will connect with you, but my connection might be a little bit more limited. Again, just giving my time. The other thing too is we've got other leaders within the leadership board that again, I'm not going to offer their services right at the moment because that would just be mean. But again, we have some others that might want to provide some of that accountability. So again, the structure, we're still trying to figure some of that out. So please be patient with us as we move forward into, again, growing tall now, which is taking on more action teams than just two. And so the action teams will make a report to the Alumni Association leadership team, and that's whether or not you're selected for more of a more of accountability coach, if you will, from me, or at some point if you still want to move forward with your action team, and then I'll provide any update that you have to the alumni board to make sure that we all know what's happening within your plan and how to best connect with other alums. So it does start with a why. This really does go back to, why is this something new that I want to start? Why do I want to add this to my plate? And a lot of times it's because we want to see change happen, and it's usually a big enough thing where we want to put in energy, put in effort to get that done, even when financial resources might be quite limiting. But it also might give us an opportunity to explore new grant opportunities, new relationships, new collaborations. But it does begin with you. So this is one of those where you kind of figure out, is this a good time to lead a team and take that step? Is it a good use of my current resources? But that starts with the why, is definitely important, but it's also your role in that becomes equally important. And so with that, I want to make sure we had time for some questions, because I've been thinking about this for a while, and the leadership team has heard this for a while. But part of putting yourself out there is giving others an opportunity to kind of chime in, ask some questions, be vulnerable, right? As Dr. Brene Brown would say. So in that leadership moment, be a little bit more vulnerable. Right now, this is the time to kind of open the floor and see where this particular webinar takes us.
So Brian, there's a question in the chat. Can you give an example of an action team project?
So action team project, as far as how they were submitted by the time from submission to what we're actually doing, they've changed quite a bit, and so that's kind of a challenging question. And so the first, so given Dean and Deanne's example of the webinar, that's not necessarily the first thing that came to mind. We spent, I think, a 2-hour session really talking about what's really doable with the resources that we have and the time frame that we've got. And so putting a webinar series together that connects with the educational program is an example of something that fits within the Grand Challenge, but that's not really where we started. We really had to have some conversations about what can we really do, what can we really get done. And so as you're thinking about examples of where you want to start, I think the better question to ask yourself is, as a team, what could we get done in 30, 60, 90 days? So I wanted to start there first, and maybe we can expand on the types of action teams. I'm getting chats and.
So okay. We have a question in the Q&A. Okay. Can you talk about funding and leveraging mechanisms?
Talk about funding and leveraging mechanisms. Gosh, that's a good question. So that's something we haven't really talked about as a leadership. Well, I guess we did. We talked when we were getting the Alumni Association started. We talked a lot with you, Rochelle, on how to leverage some of the existing resources within Lead 21. Again, since that seemed like a really good fit, the Alumni Association worked with Lead 21, which is why we tried to reduce costs as much as we could by having it at the same venue as the third session, being more involved that way. So that was one way of leveraging some of those existing assets. The webinar series, again, that was going back to Rochelle and saying, hey, we've got this idea, and they happen to have an account that would allow us to provide a webinar. So some of those things, as far as leveraging mechanisms. Part of that is understanding who's on your team, what their maybe area of expertise are. Do they know some people or resources that you could use to bring into your action team? Those are things that I'm not expecting you to know by June 1. That's not something that has to be in the letter. But if you're thinking about, there might be USDA type proposals out there, or requests for applications that might be fitting. I know there's a conference proposal that we even considered as a team, where again, if we're trying to build the alum association and bring as many alums in, maybe we could build it as some type of conference proposal. So I know there are some mechanisms out there. Part of that too is, I know resources are tight at most universities, but if deans know the type of project that you're trying to get going, knowing that this could put a good shine some light on your university for some of the efforts that you're doing by cross collaborating. I know we've talked with Kirby about maybe trying to find if there's a way to get some resources available for more of is it charters, alumni charters or chapters, sorry. And so again, trying to do more of a local arrangement of maybe nearby universities and trying to find funds to bring together to do some leveraging. Part of that is going to be so specific to the kind of question or the grand challenge you're wanting to tackle. But part of that is figuring out what could really allow your team to get started on something. Is there another?
So we have another question. Are the grand challenges domestic or international in scope?
I wouldn't say. I don't think that needs to be limited to international or domestic. I think either are fair game.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
What's your team willing to do? Yep. What's your team willing to do?
I think, at least from my perspective and from the facilitations team perspective, we really view this as essentially creating like a LEAD 21 think tank in a lot of ways. This is the opportunity to cross classes of LEAD 21 alum who have had similar developmental experiences and want to do something further with it. And this is an opportunity to kind of, like Brian said, to expand those networks, collaborate across classes, across disciplines, and to really address some of these big things, kind of that now that you're done. Right. And that's kind of, we always, before Alumni Association became a thing, we always talked about creating this think tank, and that's really what this is the start of in a lot of ways.
Right. Does anybody have any ideas that they're thinking about? I just want some maybe help fleshing out those ideas a bit.
So another question, can you talk a bit on the 30, 60, 90?
Can I talk about that? Yeah. Anything specifically? Can you maybe expand on what you'd like to know about that?
Samira, would you like me to open your microphone? You can explain.
Yeah, that'd be good.
There you go. Now you can talk if you want.
Hi. Yeah, I wasn't sure about what kind of outcomes you're looking for in that letter of intent. So that 30, 60, 90, is it like a time frame to get some outcomes done? I'm just unsure about what are you looking for. Yeah.
That's okay. That helps. Thank you. So for me, that is not so much the letter of intent. So maybe just let me go back to that. I'm not looking for your 30, 60, 90 for your letter of intent. This is really more about something that you want to accomplish as an action team. What are you really hoping to lead change in? And so part of that is identifying, okay, here's the grand challenge that our action team, that's part of our why, as we really feel passionate about this because, and being able to articulate that, I think really helps, because That's what's going to get you to that 30, 60, 90-day plan. Is once you've said, okay, this is at least have now identified the grand challenge. Now within the grand challenge, there's some idea that we want to tackle, but we don't know exactly how we want to do that yet. But we know it's going to take leadership. We know it's going to take communication. We know it's going to take effort from everybody on that action team to move us closer to accomplishing that goal. So part of it is figuring out, is there some type of project that we can get started, which is a path, pathfinder. And so part of that is understanding, well, what opportunities are in front of us right now to get that done, and looking at maybe current assets, how much time can I really commit. In this case, it's the webinar. It's like maybe we do this quarterly because that's what really Dean and Deanne can afford time wise, or the education committee. Again, that's what time that they can allot towards it. But again, knowing that you want to do something within communication, and knowing that you've got, when you start day 0, knowing that you need to get something done in that next 30, 60, 90 days to get you closer to that goal is really how I use that within the action teams. I'm not looking for that within the letter of intent, but that's something that I can, maybe that's through, webinars, a webinar like this at some point along the year. If I can't work with everybody, individually, maybe having something more collectively to kind of make sure that we're all making some progress on those goals. But great question.
Okay, there, I'm unmuted now. So there was a question, obviously, as participants, they can't see who all is on this webinar.
Oh, sure.
So I think just for the purposes of ease, maybe if everyone in the chat can make sure, one, that you're chatting to all panelists and attendees, could just type in your name, institution, and maybe your discipline or department, just so that everybody can kind of get a sense of who all is on here. That's a great point. Thank you for asking. That'll be in the chat, not the Q&A.
In the chat, yeah.
And then certainly if there's other questions, feel free to let us know. Nobody's going to introduce themselves. Did everybody find the chat?
They were never here, right?
Name, institution, and department. Thank you, Jose. Oh, that's going to all panelists. Make sure, yeah, there you go, Kirby. All panelists and attendees.
Let me try this. And maybe that will help get the juices flowing a little bit.
I think the main thing that I would emphasize, that what Brian is saying is, these are grand challenges for a reason. They're really complex, and we're not asking you to go out and solve everything about it. Because when you go read these, they are and can be very overwhelming.
Right.
But many of you are doing work in these areas, or would like to be doing work in these areas, or have ideas. And so just think about what are the small things that you can accomplish, again, in those 30, 60, 90 days. I'll use Brian's phrase, start small. Because we recognize that we're not able to provide you funding, we're not able to provide you, certain things that would be really helpful, but getting a group together to start working on these things could lead to funding. And we talked about groups being able to apply for multi-state projects and how these could easily fit into some of those things. So, but you got to kind of start somewhere to even lead to that.
Yeah, for example, I was just looking at the food security one, and I just have a general interest in food security. A lot of my work is integrated pest management, but it's something even when I first started here, just got really drawn into, and even started a food security interest group with another faculty member on campus. It was just a real challenge getting that to get off the ground. Again, so to me it would be, well, maybe I could get an action team together with enough others that want to maybe do just a separate type of webinar or some type of white paper or some type of action that would kind of get us to think more collectively as a team, and then maybe figure out what that next step is. But part of that is just kind of getting that glue to stick you to kind of really stick you together. And that's that Pathfinder project, is get your minds in a framework that again leads to maybe that next bigger step. And so really even looking at how the Grand Challenge Committee started, for me, I needed to take those small steps. It was a small thing to do, is just get a couple of action teams for me to get a better handle on it. And if I would have started with the much bigger proposal, I don't think we'd really be at this point, or we'd know as much as we need to know to make this better. And so it's that same idea as, yeah, we can just create a Grand Challenge Committee and get a bunch of people working together and push it as quickly as we can without enough information. I don't know if that's going to be that successful. Here, if we get a couple more action teams, and now we've got the 2 previous ones that are working, and now 2 new ones, and then building. That's really how a lot of these grand challenges are going to be. We're not going to solve them. That's why they're grand challenges, but we're going to make a lot of progress. And part of that is figuring out what we really can get done. As an action team, what do you want to see happen, and what can you do in 30, 60, 90 days? Again, and maybe it's some of the confusion. This is on my part. And so at that 30-day mark, right, you're not done. You're now ready for that next 30, 60, 90 days. So it's really more of a mindset of this is continual change. This is continual effort. This is strategic doing. This isn't just coming up with a plan that, hey, this is how we're going to solve it. No, it's going to take action to actually do something to make a change. And so part of that is, where are you going to hold yourself and your team accountable in that first 30 days? And then what's the next 30 days? What's the next 30 days? What's the next 30 days? And that's those little milestones, again, on a Pathfinder project that's going to get you closer to addressing one of these grand challenges. So again, that's why I'm not looking for, what's your first 30 day. But if you have an idea and that idea, you're selling it away that I know maybe at the end of the year, you can be making a lot of good progress on it, is going to take work between day 0 and at the end of the year. It's really more of that, what can I get done? What can we do as a team? Are we making progress? And so maybe that clarifies that how that 30, 60, 90 is being used.
So Brian, as people were typing in their names and what they were interested in, it occurred to me that recognizing not everybody knows everybody, so maybe we can chat afterwards, and I put this in the chat as well for everybody. Maybe we can chat afterwards about how do we distribute this list of people that were interested in attending, but also
Sure.
figure out who might be interested in what, so that we can connect them as well.
Oh yeah, good point.
They're not all from the same class and may not know each other.
How do you want to be connected? How do you?
Yeah, and certainly if you have.
Oh, really? No, not you, Rochelle. Like the collective. Who's online? Like, how do you? Can you maybe we can use a little bit of the time that we've got is to what if we're going to start engaging with, say for sake of argument that you knew everybody who was at least saw that list and everybody was online. How would you want to engage with people? How would you, if you were to wake up tomorrow and you were to say, hey, I've got an idea that fits with the Grand Challenge, and I need to connect with somebody. Tell me what that action looks like. Well, how would you want to go about getting that done? And you just put your sandwich down and just respond if you need to for just a moment. But how would you want to get that done? Well, that's good. Suggested best process document.
Yeah.
Excellent. So if you woke up tomorrow and wanted to connect with folks that were on this call today, how would you want to do it? I'm kind of modeling this 30, 60, 90 day. So you were all passionate enough to sign up for the webinar to get involved. How do you want to stay engaged with those that were here? Talk to me about that.
So Brian, there's a question: should each challenge have a
Yeah,
coordinator?
I saw that. Yeah, at some point that the challenge, that's the task force leader is the one that is leading that particular grand challenge. And so the task force around future of extension, again, that person would serve as a, at least in my head, how I'm seeing that as I'm working with these teams on this kind of this 30, 60, 90 thing, is to again have some others that have maybe had some training themselves on this particular model, or have a way of working with other teams to help them move through that process. That's kind of that leadership role.
Yeah, some good suggestions here.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
This is part of the process of we're just trying to figure it all out.
Yep, no, exactly. So yeah, would a Facebook group help? Would so think about social media platforms that we have available. Is there something that, you use on a regular basis, more habitual, that you feel like would give you a little more leverage to think about these things? No, these are great suggestions so far. Yep, naming those. So is there a way to save these comments and all that?
Yeah, I'll save the chat when we finish too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
We'll have the chat and the recording.
Excellent. Well, the other thing. Oh, I did that again, didn't I?
Yeah, you did. It's okay.
That's all right.
And then it's still cutting it off again. So.
Is it?
Yep. There you go. Yep.
I just wanted to start there.
Yep.
Before I forgot about that.
Yep. Yeah. So I can put a plug in for this. So we've actually, while this was going on, I got the update that Lindell Stout from Oklahoma State, she's, I think she was in class 12 also actually, will be doing our next webinar on May 15th at 1 p.m. She's going to focus on media relations. That's pretty broad. She's going to give us a more specific topic and description of what that looks like. We're also scheduling one for August. The date will be coming out soon. And I think we're already having conversations about November as well. So we'll end up getting a total of 4 in for 2019. So be looking out for that. And then, like I said, Ryan and I will kind of look through some of the suggestions y'all had on how to connect all of you and think about ways to at least start to build those networks so that you can start to think about those proposals as well. So,
yep.
Ryan, anything else you want to add?
And feel free to reach out to me if things come to mind. I mean, I'm one of those people as well that if, I've heard something but needed some time to kind of think through it, feel free to email me anytime about some with questions or suggestions or willingness to volunteer to help with some of these things. Those are, it really does help us best connect alum to needs. Oh, thanks, Dean. Okay. Awesome.
Cool.
Hey, good work on your first webinar, Dean. Nice job. And Deanne.
All right. Thank you all for joining us. If you have any other questions, Brian and I can hang on for a little bit, but we appreciate you joining us, and we'll hopefully see you in May.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. I am going to stop the recording.